In this video, we're gonna go over the best way to apologize to each sign. So let's go. So we can actually group the signs by element when it comes to this topic, because what they need when they're pissed off or upset in terms of an apology is actually very similar depending on what element they are. Okay, so first up, let's talk about the fire signs. That would be Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. So you have an Aries, a Leo, or a Sagittarius mad at you. Well, what we know that in general, the fire signs have a much more natural confidence about them. This is because they are action-oriented and you need a certain amount of confidence to take action. So if they're pissed off at you and you have decided that you want to reconnect or make amends, basically you're ready to talk it out, do not approach them thinking that you're going to explain to them why they shouldn't be mad at you. The reason I brought up their confidence earlier is because if they're pissed, then they are very confident that what you did is wrong enough to give them the right to be pissed at you. So challenging that point is a waste of your time and theirs, because it will just make them more angry and add fuel to their already burning fire. This doesn't mean that you need to roll up with your tail tucked between your legs and beg for forgiveness. Please forgive me. But it does mean that there's no need to waste your time fighting a battle that's going to get you nowhere. Like I said, the fire signs are action-oriented. So at the end of the day, what they need to know is whatever it is that you did that pissed them off, you're not going to do it again. That is the action they need to know you're going to take. So the apology needs to look something like this. Hello, my Aries, my Leo, or my Sagittarius. I realize that what I did does not work for you. And because I care about you, I want you to know that making you upset is not something that I'm interested in doing. So I will make sure to never do whatever it was that upset you again. The fire signs are not that big on words. So the words "I'm sorry" don't mean much without action. So if you're gonna lead with saying "I'm sorry," you need to follow it up with giving them the reassurance that you will be taking action to no longer piss them off doing whatever it was that you did. And the only way to really do this is by letting them know that you are willing to commit to no longer doing whatever it was that caused the disconnect. So in short, the conversation needs to completely avoid the debate of who is right and who is wrong and get directly to the action that you're going to take in order to reconnect the relationship and re-establish trust. If you're not willing to commit to this, then tell them what you are willing to do. Ask them what action it will take in order to get their forgiveness. Then the two of you can discuss and go back and forth until you negotiate terms that you both feel good about. But whatever you do, do not say "I'm sorry, but." You know how people do that. "I'm sorry, but the reason I did," or "I'm sorry, but." You just don't want to do that. All that is meaningless. The point is that you did it, they didn't like it, and they need to know the action that you're going to take to make sure it never happens again. Fire signs are usually pretty open to compromise as long as you're starting from the place of "I don't want to hurt you. So if this type of scenario shows up again, how can I be better?" This is how the fire signs Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius will begin to trust that you do care, because you're willing to take action which will lead them to forgive you and move forward. Because they're not trying to argue all day and let that negative energy linger. By the way, throw in some good makeup sex and you are golden. Okay, here's a quick recap of the do's and don'ts when it comes to apologizing to the fire signs Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Number one, do be ready for them to be pretty dramatic in their expression when they're telling you why they're upset or that they're upset or mad at you. Don't fuel their fire by telling them that they are wrong for feeling the way that they feel, unless you are ready for the flames of anger to grow and possibly burn your face off. Number two, do let them know that you're sorry for hurting them. Don't say "I'm sorry, but." Otherwise, that is just undermining your apology and your words will mean nothing. Number three, do let them know what action you're going to take in the future if this ever comes up again, to make sure that they feel confident that this scenario will not happen over and over. And throw in, like I said, some makeup sex. And don't think that just words are going to do it. Your actions must match your words. If you're going to apologize, take action to make sure they know you are truly sorry. Speaking of lingering negative energy, let's get on to the earth signs. We know the one thing about the earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, that all three of them have in common is being stubborn when they're pissed off, and we also know that they do have a rule book. not an actual book with the rules written down in it, but Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn all have defined ideas of what is right and what is wrong. And they usually share those ideas with you early on in the relationship. They let you know what is going to work for them and what doesn't. So when you do something that pisses them off, it's usually something that they have told you at some point doesn't work for them, and then you did it. Or something that they told you that they needed from you and you didn't do it. So they see it as more of a breach of trust or an act of dishonesty, which is a majorly punishable offense for any of the earth signs. So if you did something that pissed them off and you want to make it right, here is how to apologize. With the earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, it's about first letting them know that you do realize what you did is wrong. If you don't start off with that and you actually want to attempt to tell them that they're seeing it the wrong way, then be ready to go to court. All three of these signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, are so ready for any debate. They're gonna go round after round, giving the supporting facts, examples, dates and times, quotes of what each of you have said in the past. They may even call a few witnesses to prove their point. And is this a debate that you really wanna have? If being reconnected is what you want, do you really think a debate is gonna get you where you want to go? Probably not. I have to keep it real though. The annoying thing about dealing with these three earth signs is in this scenario, they will want to question you with things like, what were you thinking? And didn't you promise me you would never do that? Or did you really think this was gonna be okay? And this is after you have had to sit through or endure a certain amount of time being ignored by them, because like I've said in the past, the earth signs do use the silent treatment. Instead of going there with them though, get directly to how can I make it up to you? The earth signs are about earning their trust. So if you have lost it, you are going to have to earn it back. So the words I'm sorry or I apologize are a great start because that does matter to them. Then let them know that you understand why they're angry and that they are justified in their anger. And where the fire signs need to know what action you're going to take in the future to make sure it will never happen again, the earth signs need to know what exactly you're going to do to make it up to them, in addition to the fact that you have now promised to never do again what it was that you did. They need to know that you aren't going to be back in their good graces just because you apologized, unless they say that that's all that they needed from you. Because if that's the case, you're good. But this needs to be very clear. Saying I'm sorry and then saying is there anything that you need from me in order to earn your trust back? If so, what is it? If you go that route of that phrasing, that communication, then you can be clear if what they're asking you to do is something that you're willing to do. If it isn't, then a conversation begins that's worth having, which is now you can both negotiate the terms of this agreement to reestablish the trust. Once the trust is reestablished, the earth signs can forgive and move forward. Here's a quick recap of the do's and don'ts when it comes to apologizing to the earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. Number 1, do be ready for a bit of the silent treatment and the cold shoulder when they are angry. Don't try to force them to talk to you and then attempt to debate with them in hopes to get them to see that they are wrong. Otherwise, you will feel like you're in a courtroom and the conversation will go on and on forever and ever. And trust me, they will show up with opening statements, supporting evidence, and a ruling that is more than likely not in your favor.
You speak, I rule, and then you shut up.
Number 2, once they do decide to speak to you, do be ready to listen to them preach for a second about just how wrong what you did was, usually citing some examples to really hammer in the point. Mississippi. Don't start explaining to them or citing what they've done that's wrong in hopes to balance it out, which is basically like when someone says, oh, you did this, and you're like, hey, but what about this? You did this. Don't go that route. If you really had an issue with the topic that you're about to bring up, you should have addressed that at a different time. Don't just bring it up as a defense for you getting called out. It only makes them more frustrated and more likely to hold a grudge. And number 3, do make sure to apologize and establish the ways in which you are going to earn back their trust. By the way, buying them a gift definitely can't hurt. You can't necessarily buy their love or forgiveness, but it for sure softens them up a bit. And don't attempt to joke and make light of the situation. If they think you aren't taking them seriously, then they'll be done with you and the conversation. Side note, if it's something small and they're angry about it, actually getting them to laugh really helps, and they might let it go. But in this video, I'm talking about the big fights, not the small ones. Okay, on to the air signs. So the air signs, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, are actually going to be a little less rigid when it comes to apologizing. More than anything else, they just want to feel understood. This is about hearing them out, answering their questions, and reassuring them that you do completely understand their perspective. They won't be so heavy and rigid when it comes to what you need to do to make it up to them or how much you need to admit that you're wrong. It's so much more important for them to know that you get where they're coming from and that you understand why they're angry with you. So make sure you approach the situation by establishing that you are sorry for what you did and that you are open to answering any questions that they may have for you regarding the situation. Because with the air signs, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, they feel like if you understand that what you did was wrong, then more than likely you're not going to do it again. So you don't have to sign a contract like you do with the earth signs, or you don't have to specify any exact action that you're going to take like you do with the fire signs. But you do need to make sure that they feel by the end of your apology and conversation that you not only understand why what you did was wrong, but that because of this understanding, you will make a different choice in the future if this situation comes up, based on the fact that now you have spoken to them and you now see the perspective more clearly. They may even be open to you pointing out what they did wrong in the situation, and they may even be open to taking responsibility for what part they played in the breakdown. But you must first make sure that they feel understood with their point before even beginning to approach that type of conversation. For the air signs, words do really matter. They're very important. So choose them carefully, but make sure the words "I apologize" and the words "I definitely see where you're coming from and why you're so angry," make sure those words are a part of the equation. Once they have forgiven you, suggesting something fun to do together will for sure get you back in their good graces. It will help remind them just why they love being with you in the first place. Okay, so here's a quick recap of the do's and don'ts when it comes to apologizing to the air signs, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Number one, do be ready for them to ask you a bunch of questions like, why did you do that? What were you thinking? Don't you think that was wrong what you did? Don't answer their questions with a question or it will send them through the roof. If they say to you, why did you do that? Don't say, why do you think I did it? Do you think I don't love you? That will just get you nowhere. Number two, do let them know you completely understand where they're coming from and why they're angry. Don't tell them that they're being overly dramatic or ridiculous for seeing it the way that they're seeing it. Otherwise, you just gave them a ticket to start bringing up even more things that you've done from the past in an attempt to help you understand why they're so upset with you. Remember, they just want to know that you understand where they're coming from. So don't make them bring up other situations to do so, because they are willing to. And then you have a whole different fight on your hands. Number three, do let them know how much you care about them and that you're sorry for hurting them. And that all you want to do is get back to having fun and enjoying each other's company. And like I said, follow this up with a few suggestions of what the two of you can do together on your next night out. This way, for sure, it'll lift their spirits and give them something to look forward to. Don't just apologize and go right back to focusing on yourself as though the conversation never happened. If you don't end the conversation on a high note with something your air sign can look forward to, you're becoming more and more undesirable to them by the second. Okay, water signs. Let me start with this. If you need to apologize to a water sign, it's usually because you've done something to them that they think is proof that you don't love them the way they deserve to be loved. And because of this, they are hurt and need to be reassured that you do love them. So more than anything, when you approach them, you need to make sure that you absolutely do not tell them that they should not feel the way that they feel. This will only make them feel even more angry and even more disconnected from you, because now they have to spend time trying to prove to you that they have every right to feel the way that they feel. You need to open the conversation with, I'm sorry I hurt you, and you have every right to feel the way that you're feeling. And this has to be sincere, because all of the water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, can sniff out some bullshit a mile away. The next step is simply asking them what it is that you can do to make them feel better. Much of the time they will respond with nothing, because they're pretending that there's nothing you can do, because they're just so pissed and all they can think of is being hurt. And when they're hurt, all they can really see is breaking up with you or exacting revenge in some specific way. But once they see that you care enough to not just give up because they're a bit shut down, and that you're willing to fight for their love, they'll begin to come around. A word of advice though, whatever it is that they ask you to do, you better be willing to do it, because if you think you can negotiate in the same way that you're able to do with a fire sign or with an air sign, then you can forget it. They feel like if you love them, then you'll be willing to do whatever it is that they ask of you. So make sure that if you do make the offer, then you're willing to follow it up with the commitment to make good on your promises. Once they see that you truly are sorry and that you're willing to do whatever it takes, and I do mean whatever, then they will begin to get over it. You also have to know that getting over it doesn't mean that they won't ever bring it up again. The water signs might forgive, but they don't usually forget, especially Cancer and Scorpio. So you have to be willing to hear about it for a while until they feel like they've hammered the point home enough. But in the end, if you really love them, then it is worth it, because when they feel that they're loved, they are more than willing to do anything in return to make sure you feel loved as well. And with the water signs, you can never go wrong with just pampering them afterwards a bit, like a massage or making them dinner or taking them out. I mean, any sign of like romantic expression is always going to be points towards getting back together, letting go of the negative energy that the fight may have caused. So here's a quick recap of the do's and don'ts when it comes to apologizing to the water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Number 1, do be ready for them to have a shut down and shut you out attitude at the start of the conversation. Don't be impatient and say, well, if you're just gonna not speak to me and shut down like this, then we might as well just not even talk, because this will just cause them to shut you out even more and get even more angry with you. Number 2, do be ready to express how you feel about them any way that you can to reassure them that the love is real. Don't call them names like immature or ridiculous, or say how they're acting is stupid or what they're saying makes no sense, because this will for sure get you nowhere and may even put your life in jeopardy. Number 3, make the apology sincere with the tagline, whatever it is you need me to do to prove to you I'm sorry, I'll do it. Don't fall short of fulfilling their requests. Otherwise, they won't trust you. And as I've said many times before in many other videos, if a water sign does not trust you, then there is no hope for the relationship. So there you have it. The best way to apologize to each of the signs based on their element. And remember that when you're considering this information, to factor in their moon sign as well. For example, if I'm apologizing to a Sagittarius with Pisces moon, I want to make sure to take into consideration both approaches. Sincerely apologizing, making sure that there's an action that I will take in the future, right? Communicate that action to make sure that they know it won't happen again. That satisfies the Sagittarius part of who they are. And then tag it with, and if there's anything else you need me to do to show you how much I love you, let me know what that is, because that's going to satisfy that Pisces moon of theirs. This may sound like an overkill to you in terms of who wants to be in a relationship where you have to go through all of that drama just to make up. But the truth is, if you have two people that are both committed to doing what the other person requires in order to feel loved, then you're both going to be happy. And the trust and connection only grows because each time someone on the other side does something because they know it makes you happy, you feel like you trust them more. You feel more important. You feel more cared for and more loved. With both people doing that, you can't go wrong. The issue comes up when one person's behaving that way and the other person isn't. Not to mention, if you truly establish a resolution at the end of your arguments will happen much less frequently, because with each argument, you solve the issue that caused it. So that issue will no longer come up and be a problem. And take it from me, I work with a lot of couples, both married and not married, and the consistency is most of the arguments, it's not the first time that they're having an argument about that topic. It's usually very few topics that happen frequently because they're never actually resolved. So it's like a reoccurring of the same issue. Notice in your relationships, you're arguing a lot of the time about the exact same thing. That's why it's really important to make sure there's resolution at the end of the conversation, so that way you know when that topic comes up again, you've made an agreement on how you're gonna handle it. And then you can hold both people accountable because they both weighed in on that agreement and they both confirmed that that's the way it's going to be handled in the future. Then over time, you spend so much more time loving each other and much less time fighting over the same thing time and time again, which is how so many relationships break down. I really hope you enjoyed this video and that the information was useful. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.